I want you to think about the last time you felt genuinely good about a financial decision. Maybe it was finally paying off a credit card. Maybe it was hitting a savings milestone. Maybe it was finding a great deal on something you needed. Whatever it was, it probably came with that specific, satisfying feeling of having done something smart, of having played the game correctly, of being, at least for a moment, on top of your financial life. Now I want you to think about something else. I want you to think about your car. Specifically, I want you to think about your car payment. If you have one, and statistically there's a very good chance you do, I want you to think about what that number is, how long you've been paying it, how long you have left, and what that money could be doing instead. Because here's the thing nobody told you when you signed the paperwork at the dealership. While the finance manager was being extremely friendly and offering you coffee and making the whole process feel warm and celebratory and normal, your car loan might be the single most destructive financial decision you will make in your entire adult life. Not the most dramatic, not the most obviously catastrophic, not the kind of financial mistake that shows up on a true crime documentary, the quiet kind, the normalized kind, the kind that is so universally practiced, so deeply embedded in the fabric of how Americans manage their finances, that questioning it feels almost eccentric, like questioning whether breathing is a good idea. Everyone does it, it must be fine, right? Wrong. Spectacularly, expensively, compoundingly wrong. And by the time this video is finished, you will understand exactly why, in a way that will make you look at every car lot, every dealership ad, every zero-down, low monthly payment offer you encounter for the rest of your life with the knowing squint of someone who has been shown the trick and can never unsee it. This is the video about car loans, about why they are, without meaningful competition, the #1 wealth killer available to the average American in 2026. Not credit card debt, though that's terrible. Not student loans, though those are genuinely painful. Not bad investments, gambling, or any of the more dramatic financial villains that get more cultural airtime. The car loan. The thing sitting in your driveway right now, quietly extracting wealth from your life with the reliability of a subscription service and the efficiency of a machine specifically designed to do exactly that. We are going to talk about the numbers, the real ones, not the monthly payment that the dealer wants you to focus on. We're going to talk about how the car loan system is designed, who it serves, and why it serves them so well at your expense. We're going to talk about what the money lost to car loans could be doing instead, and the compounding math of that alternative is going to be either inspiring or deeply upsetting, depending on how you handle financial revelations. We're going to talk about the psychology that makes the car loan trap so effective, so sticky, and so hard to see from the inside. And we're going to talk about what the people who actually build wealth do differently when it comes to transportation. So settle in. This one is going to sting a little, but it's the productive kind of sting. The kind that comes from understanding something important for the first time. Let's start with the number that explains everything. Chapter 1. The number that should make you sit down. There is a number floating around in the American economy right now that deserves significantly more attention than it gets. It shows up in Federal Reserve reports, it shows up in consumer finance data, it appears in the quarterly earnings calls of major auto lenders, and in the fine print of dealership financing offers. It is not a secret, and yet most of the people most affected by it have never seen it presented in a way that made them feel what it actually means. The number is $1.67 trillion. That is the total amount of outstanding auto loan debt in the United States as of the fourth quarter of 2025. $1.67 trillion owed on cars by Americans right now. To put that in perspective, that might actually land the entire GDP of Australia, one of the wealthiest countries in the world, with 26 million people and a highly developed economy, is approximately $1.7 trillion. Americans owe nearly as much on their cars as Australia produces in an entire year of economic activity. We have managed to accumulate, through the entirely voluntary act of financing vehicles, a debt load comparable to the annual output of a G20 nation, and it's growing. Every quarter, the number ticks upward, not because Americans are getting richer and buying more expensive cars as a sign of prosperity, though the more expensive part is certainly happening. but because the financial structures around auto lending have evolved specifically to maximize the amount of debt that can be extracted from any given car buyer at any given income level. The average car payment for a new vehicle in 2025 was $748 per month. $748 per month for a car, before insurance, before gas, before maintenance, before registration. The average monthly payment on a new car is larger than the mortgage payment on a $100,000 home, a home that is building equity, that is an appreciating asset in many markets, that gives you something tangible and lasting in exchange for the payment. The car gives you transportation, which is valuable, but it does not give you equity. It does not appreciate. It does not generate returns. It does not, in any financial sense, work for you. It works against you, depreciating the moment you acquire it, extracting interest payments from you every month, and leaving you at the end of the loan term with an asset worth dramatically less than what you paid for it in total. The average loan term for a new car in 2025 was 68 months. 68 months, nearly 6 years, of monthly payments on an asset that will be worth, by the end of those 6 years, a fraction of what you financed. The combination of the loan amount, the interest rate, and the extended term has been so perfectly calibrated by the auto lending industry that the average American is paying more for their car than any previous generation has paid in real inflation-adjusted terms, while getting less financial value in return because the loans are structured to maximize total interest paid rather than to serve the financial interests of the borrower. This is the landscape we're operating in. This is the wealth killer in its current form, and to understand why it's so destructive, we need to understand how it actually works. Not the marketing version, but the mechanical reality of what happens to your money inside a car loan. Chapter 2. How the car loan actually works, and why you were never meant to understand it. Let's talk about the mechanics of a car loan. Not in the vague, you borrow money and pay it back with interest sense that everyone knows. In the specific, granular, here's exactly where your money goes sense that dealership finance offices are specifically not incentivized to explain to you. When you take out a car loan, you are entering an amortized installment loan agreement. Amortization is the process by which your monthly payment is split between interest and principal, and the specific way that split is calculated is the key to understanding why car loans are so expensive. In the early months of an amortized loan, the majority of your monthly payment goes to interest, not principal, interest. The actual reduction of the debt you owe is minimal in the beginning. As time passes and the principal balance reduces, the proportion going to interest gradually decreases and the proportion going to principal increases. By the final months of the loan, most of your payment is going to principal. But by then, you've already paid the bulk of the interest, which is front-loaded by design. Let's run specific numbers because the abstraction doesn't land without them. You buy a car. Purchase price, $35,000. You put $2,000 down, which the dealer probably convinced you to put toward the monthly payment reduction rather than actually reducing the loan meaningfully. You finance $33,000 at 7.5% interest, roughly the average rate for someone with good but not exceptional credit in 2025, over 72 months. Your monthly payment, $570. In month 1 of that loan, $206 goes to principal and $206 goes to interest. Wait, that math doesn't add up. Let me redo that. At 7.5% annual interest on $33,000, your first month's interest charge is $33,000 multiplied by 7.5% divided by 12, which equals $206.25. Your total payment is $570. So $206 goes to interest and $364 goes to principal. Your loan balance after month 1, $32,636. By month 12, you've made $6,840 in payments. Your loan balance is approximately $29,400. You have paid down $3,600 in principal. You have paid approximately $3,240 in interest. In your first year of car payments, roughly 47% of everything you paid went to interest, to the lender, and produced zero reduction in the value of the asset you're driving. Now add depreciation. The car you bought for $35,000 is worth, on average, 20% less after the first year of ownership. approximately $28,000. You owe $29,400. Your car is worth $28,000. You are underwater on your loan. You owe more than the asset is worth. After 12 months of faithful payments. By month 24, the car has depreciated to roughly $24,000 to $25,000. Your loan balance is approximately $25,500. You're still underwater. After 2 full years and $13,680 in payments, this is the normal, expected, entirely standard outcome of buying an average car on an average loan with average rates. Not a bad deal that you negotiated poorly. The average deal. And the average deal leaves the buyer underwater on a depreciating asset for the majority of the loan term, paying significant interest in the early period when the loan balance is highest, and arriving at the end of the loan with a fully paid off asset worth approximately $14,000 to $16,000, having paid $41,040 in total for it. You paid $41,040 for a car worth $14,000. The difference, $27,040, went to the original depreciation, the dealer's margin, and the interest paid to the lender over 6 years. That $27,040 is gone. It built no equity. It generated no returns. It served its purpose, transportation, and that's all it did. The interest rate manipulation you don't know about, here's the part of the car loan system that most buyers never learn, and that the dealership finance office is specifically incentivized to ensure you never fully understand. When you finance through a dealership, which approximately 80% of car buyers do, the dealership is not simply connecting you with a lender. The dealership is acting as a middleman in the financing arrangement, and they are compensated for that role in a specific and meaningful way. They mark up the interest rate. The lender, a bank, credit union, or captive auto finance company, offers the dealer a buy rate, the lowest interest rate at which they'll fund the loan. The dealer then has the ability to mark that rate up, typically by 1 to 3 percentage points, and keep the difference as additional profit. If the lender will fund your loan at 5%, the dealer might quote you 7% and keep the revenue generated by the 2% markup for themselves. This practice is entirely legal. It is also entirely undisclosed in most transactions. You think you're getting the market rate for someone with your credit profile, you're actually getting the market rate plus the dealer's markup, and nobody at the table is required to tell you. On a $33,000 loan over 72 months, a 2% interest rate markup costs the borrower approximately $2,400 in additional interest over the life of the loan. $2,400. In a transaction where the buyer is already feeling financial pressure from the down payment, the insurance quote, and the various add-ons the finance manager is presenting, $2,400 in hidden interest markup flows through almost invisibly, disguised inside the monthly payment that has already been established as the number. The monthly payment obsession and how it costs you a fortune. If you've ever bought a car at a dealership, you've experienced the monthly payment conversation. It goes like this. So what are you looking to spend per month? The salesperson asks this question early, sometimes before you've even looked at specific vehicles, and for good reason. The monthly payment frame is the most powerful tool in the dealership's negotiating arsenal, and it works so well because it is so natural to think about personal finances in monthly terms. Once you've anchored on a monthly payment, let's say $500 per month feels manageable, the entire rest of the transaction is calibrated around hitting that number. The specific purchase price, the interest rate, the loan term, the trade-in value, the add-on products, all of these are variables that can be adjusted to produce the magic monthly payment number while maximizing the dealer's total revenue from the transaction. Want to stay at $500 per month but buy a more expensive car? Extend the loan term to 84 months. The monthly payment stays where you want it, and the total amount paid, and the total interest, increases dramatically. Want to reduce the monthly payment further? Roll negative equity from your trade-in into the new loan. The payment is lower. The loan balance is higher, the total cost is higher still. The monthly payment frame is a masterpiece of financial misdirection. It takes the most important number, the total cost of the vehicle including all interest, and makes it invisible, replacing it with a smaller, more comfortable number, that fits into a monthly budget framework without triggering the alarm that the actual total cost would produce if presented plainly. A car that costs $35,000 at the purchase price triggers a certain level of careful consideration. A car that costs $570 per month feels more manageable. It's less than a lot of people's rent, less than some people's grocery bills. The monthly payment frame compresses the perception of cost dramatically, and the compression is not neutral. It specifically serves the seller by making expensive transactions feel affordable and discouraging the kind of total cost analysis that would reveal how expensive those transactions actually are. Chapter 3: The Depreciation Disaster, the Wealth Killer within the Wealth Killer. We've talked about interest. Now let's talk about the other financial force that makes car loans uniquely destructive: depreciation. Because the car loan's wealth-killing power comes from the combination of these two forces, interest extraction and asset devaluation, working simultaneously against the buyer. And that combination, sustained over a car ownership lifetime of repeated purchases and repeated loans, produces financial damage that is both enormous and almost completely invisible to the people experiencing it. Depreciation is the rate at which an asset loses value over time. For almost every asset class that people invest in, stocks, real estate, businesses, even most collectibles, the general trend over long time periods is upward. Assets appreciate, that's what makes them assets. Cars do the opposite. Cars depreciate reliably, predictably, at rates that have been studied so extensively that the industry publishes standardized depreciation curves for every make and model. The average new car loses approximately 15 to 25% of its value in the first year of ownership, not over 5 years, not over a decade, in the first 12 months. The moment you drive off the lot, the car is worth less than you paid for it, typically by $3,000 to $7,000 depending on the vehicle, because the market distinguishes sharply between a new car and a used car with 0 miles. Your car has a mile on it, it's used. The premium you paid for new car status evaporates immediately. Over 5 years, the average car has lost approximately 50 to 60% of its original value. A $35,000 car is worth $14,000 to $17,000 after 5 years of ownership. The $21,000 to $21,000 in depreciation during that period represents a real, permanent loss of value. Money that left your financial life without providing any ongoing return, any equity, or any future recovery. It's just gone. Now layer the loan interest on top of the depreciation. On the $33,000 loan example from the previous chapter, total interest paid over 72 months at 7.5% is approximately $8,040. Add that to the depreciation loss of roughly $20,000 on a $35,000 car over 6 years, and the total wealth destruction from a single new car purchase on an average loan is approximately $28,000 on one car over one loan term. And then what do most people do at the end of that 72-month loan? They buy another car, possibly trading in the old one, which is now worth $14,000 to $16,000, using whatever equity exists as a down payment, or rolling negative equity from the old loan into the new one if they traded before the loan was paid off. The cycle restarts. Another $28,000 in combined interest and depreciation loss, another 72 months, another car. Over a 30-year period of driving, the cumulative wealth destruction from repeated new car purchases on repeated loans is staggering. Let's calculate it properly because the number deserves to be seen clearly. 3 car loan cycles over 30 years, each on a vehicle that costs approximately $35,000 to $40,000 in today's dollars, each cycle generating approximately $8,000 in interest payments and $20,000 in depreciation loss. Combined per cycle cost beyond basic transportation value, approximately $28,000. 3 cycles, $84,000, $84,000 in interest and depreciation losses above and beyond the transportation value you received from the vehicles. That $84,000 did not go to savings, it did not go to investments, it did not compound. It went to lenders in interest, and to the depreciation curve in vanished asset value. Now ask what $84,000 deployed differently, invested rather than paid to lenders and lost to depreciation, would be worth over the same 30-year period. At a 7% average annual return on a diversified index fund portfolio, $84,000 invested in a lump sum at age 25 would be worth approximately $640,000 at age 55. $640,000. That is what the car loan habit costs. Not in the payments themselves, but in the opportunity cost of what those payments could have become. This is the wealth killer in its full form. Not just the $748 monthly payment that shows up in your budget. The compounded, opportunity cost-adjusted 30-year financial cost of the car loan lifestyle, which is for the person who drives new cars on 72-month loans their entire adult life, a number that approaches or exceeds the total they'll need for retirement. You are not just buying a car, you are buying a car with your retirement. Chapter 4, The Psychology Factory, Why the Car Loan Trap Works So Perfectly. Here's what makes the car loan the most effective wealth killer in the American financial landscape. It doesn't feel like a trap. It feels like a reward. It feels like success. It feels like the appropriate response to having worked hard enough to afford a nice thing. And the mechanisms that produce that feeling are so well engineered, so deeply embedded in American cultural identity, and so relentlessly reinforced by billion-dollar marketing budgets that seeing through them requires a level of deliberate, conscious resistance that most people, operating in the normal flow of their normal lives, simply never apply to the car purchase decision. Let's walk through the specific psychological mechanisms that make the car loan work so well on so many people. The status signal cars are one of the most visible signals of social and economic status in American culture. Your car is seen by your neighbors every day. Your colleagues see it in the parking lot. Your friends notice it. Your family comments on it. The car is a rolling advertisement for your economic position, or more precisely, for the economic position you want to project. And the social pressure to project a position consistent with your peer group, your professional level, and your self-image is real and powerful. This social signaling pressure is not imaginary or shallow. It is a deeply human response to the way status is communicated in communities, and it has real effects on career opportunities, relationship perceptions, and self-confidence. The person who drives the visibly older, less prestigious vehicle in a professional context where colleagues drive newer cars experiences real social friction that, while not rational from a financial perspective, is also not nothing from a human experience perspective. The car industry knows this. It has known it for a century. The entire structure of automotive marketing, from the aspirational imagery to the model lineup that segments vehicles by price and prestige, is built on the human desire for status signaling. And the car loan is the instrument that makes status signaling financially accessible to people who cannot afford to pay cash for the car that signals the status they want to project. The loan doesn't just enable the purchase, it enables the performance of a financial identity that doesn't exist. You can drive a $45,000 car on a $55,000 salary because the loan spreads the cost across 72 monthly payments that, while significant, don't require the lump sum wealth that $45,000 actually represents. You get the car, you get the status signal. The bank gets $12,000 in interest. The car gets worth $18,000. Everyone wins except your net worth. The normalization effect. Perhaps the most powerful psychological mechanism keeping the car loan trap operational is sheer normalization. Car loans are so universal in American consumer culture that the absence of one, owning a car outright, or driving a less expensive car to avoid the need for financing, is the thing that requires explanation, not the presence of one. The statistics confirm the normalization. Approximately 85% of new car purchases in the United States are financed. When 85% of people who buy cars take out loans to do it, the loan is not a choice that requires justification. It is simply what buying a car means. The question at the dealership is not, will you be financing, but how long would you like the loan term to be? The financing is assumed. The details are negotiated. This normalization means that the decision to take on a car loan is rarely subjected to the scrutiny that would expose its financial cost. People negotiate the interest rate, the loan term, the monthly payment. They almost never ask the question that would be most revealing. What is the total amount I will pay for this car, including all interest, over the life of the loan? That question, which every lender is legally required to disclose on the loan documents, is rarely asked because it's not part of the culturally normal script of the car purchase process. When a behavior is normalized, it bypasses the deliberate decision-making systems and flows through automatic, habit-driven processing. You don't decide to take out a car loan the way you decide to make a major investment or sign a significant business contract. You take out a car loan the way you order coffee. It's what you do when you buy a car because it's what everyone does when they buy a car, and the process is so familiar and smooth and socialized that it doesn't feel like a consequential financial decision, even though it absolutely is. The new car emotion. There is a specific emotional experience associated with a new car that is genuinely pleasurable and that the automotive industry has spent enormous resources studying, amplifying, and strategically deploying at exactly the right moments in the purchase process. The smell, the unblemished interior, the display with all the features, the quietness of a machine that hasn't accumulated any wear, the feeling of pulling out of the dealership in something that is, for this brief moment, entirely yours and entirely perfect. This emotional peak is real, it is not manufactured, and it is specifically timed to occur at the moment of commitment, after the paperwork is signed, after the financial terms are locked in, which means it cannot be used as a deliberate tool for evaluating the quality of the financial decision. It can only be used retroactively as emotional justification for a decision that was already made. The emotional experience of buying a new car is so powerful that it consistently overwhelms the financial analysis. People who would never sign a business contract without reading every line, who negotiate aggressively on salary offers, who research purchases extensively before committing, these same people will sit in a finance office experiencing the new car emotion and sign documents that commit them to tens of thousands of dollars in interest payments without reading the total cost figures. The emotion is doing the decision-making. The rational financial mind is on vacation, replaced by the dopamine of the new car moment. This is not a character flaw, it is a neurological reality, and the car industry is specifically, deliberately, expertly designed to exploit it. The monthly payment normalization. We touched on the monthly payment framing earlier in the context of dealership negotiation tactics, but it deserves deeper treatment as a psychological mechanism, because the monthly payment frame doesn't just shape the negotiation. It shapes the entire way people relate to the cost of their car for the duration of ownership. Once you have a monthly payment, the car's cost becomes that monthly payment in your mental accounting. You don't think of your car as a $41,040 asset that's depreciating toward $14,000 while you pay $570 per month. You think of your car as my car payment, a fixed monthly expense, like the electric bill, that is simply part of the landscape of your financial life. It is budgeted for, it is planned for, it is not an object of ongoing financial scrutiny because it has been settled. It is a line item. This mental accounting shift is extraordinarily effective at preventing people from reassessing the quality of the financial decision they made. The total cost of the loan, the $41,040 against the $35,000 purchase price against the $14,000 eventual value, is never assembled in one place and confronted as a complete picture. Instead, it's experienced as a monthly payment, month after month, until the loan ends and the cycle restarts. Chapter 5, The Loan Term Creep, How They Turned a 3-year problem into a 7-year catastrophe. Here's a specific and relatively recent development in the car loan landscape that deserves its own chapter, because it represents a deliberate and significant escalation of the wealth-killing power of auto debt, the dramatic extension of loan terms over the past 2 decades. In the 1990s, the standard car loan was 36 to 48 months, 3 to 4 years. The average buyer financed a car and paid it off in roughly the same time frame as it took the car to reach its steepest depreciation curve. By the time the loan was retired, the car was fully paid off, worth something reasonable, and the buyer had a period of debt-free car ownership before the next purchase. By 2010, the average loan term had stretched to 60 months. By 2020, it was 72 months. By 2025, the average term for new car loans was 68 months, and a significant and growing percentage of loans were being written at 84 months, 7 years, with some lenders offering terms as long as 96 months, 8 years, on a car. The reason for this extension is not primarily that consumers demanded longer loans. It is that longer loans produce lower monthly payments, which allow buyers to purchase more expensive vehicles at the same monthly payment threshold, generating more revenue for dealers and more interest for lenders. while simultaneously generating significantly more total interest income over the extended loan term. The math on loan term extension is clarifying. On a $33,000 loan at 7.5% at 48 months monthly payment, $800, total interest paid $5,400 at 60 months, monthly payment $660, total interest paid $6,600 at 72 months, monthly payment $570, total interest paid $8,040 at 84 months, monthly payment $504, total interest paid $9,336. Each extension of the loan term reduces the monthly payment, making the car feel more affordable, while increasing the total interest paid and extending the period during which the buyer is underwater on a depreciating asset. The 84-month buyer pays $3,936 more in interest than the 48-month buyer on the same loan for the same car. That additional interest is pure additional cost. No additional value, no additional car. Just additional money to the lender, extracted by the simple mechanism of spreading the loan over more time. The 84-month loan also creates a specific and particularly damaging dynamic called perpetual negative equity. A car depreciates fastest in its early years. An 84-month loan reduces the principal slowly in its early years due to front-loaded interest. The combination means the buyer is underwater, owing more than the car is worth, for a much longer period than on a shorter-term loan. In some cases, the buyer is underwater for 4 or 5 of the 7-year loan term. During that period, any attempt to trade in or sell the car requires either paying the difference in cash or rolling the negative equity into a new loan, which starts the cycle over with an even higher loan balance. The 84-month loan buyer who trades at 48 months is not trading even. They are rolling $3,000 to $5,000 of negative equity into a new loan on a new car, a new loan that starts again with front-loaded interest on a higher principal balance. The wealth destruction compounds with every cycle, and the buyer, experiencing the new car emotion at each trade-in, rarely stops to calculate the total cost of the perpetual cycle they're participating in. This is the loan term creep, a systematic extension of loan duration that has, over 2 decades, quietly doubled the interest income extractable from the average car buyer without meaningfully changing the buyer's perception of what the car costs. The monthly payment is the number that matters in the buyer's mind. The total cost is the number that matters in the lender's earnings report. These two numbers have been separated from each other by the simple mechanism of time, and the separation is entirely, exclusively, in the lender's favor. Chapter 6. The Insurance Multiplier. The hidden tax on your car loan. Here's a cost that almost never appears in any car loan affordability conversation, and that adds thousands of dollars per year to the total cost of finance vehicle ownership in ways that are both significant and entirely predictable. The insurance premium that your lender requires you to carry. When you finance a vehicle, you don't get to choose your insurance coverage level. The lender chooses it for you. Because the lender has a financial interest in the vehicle, they own it, technically, until you pay off the loan. They require comprehensive and collision coverage at minimum, often with specific deductible maximums. This is non-negotiable. It is written into every auto loan agreement, and it is significantly more expensive than the liability-only coverage that the owner of a paid-off older vehicle can legally carry. Let's put numbers to this. The average annual cost of full coverage auto insurance in the United States in 2025 was approximately $2,314 per year, or about $193 per month. The average annual cost of minimum liability-only coverage was approximately $627 per year, about $52 per month. The difference, $1,687 per year, or $141 per month. On a 72-month loan, that mandatory full coverage insurance premium, the portion above what you'd pay for basic liability coverage on a paid-off car, costs approximately $10,122 in additional insurance premiums over the loan term. $10,000 in insurance premiums that you are required to pay specifically because you have a loan on the vehicle. If you owned the car outright, you could legally carry cheaper coverage. The loan requires the expensive coverage. The expensive coverage costs you $10,000 over 6 years. Add that $10,122 in mandatory insurance premium uplift to the $8,040 in loan interest we calculated earlier, and the total financial cost of having a loan on a $33,000 car above and beyond the transportation value, is approximately $18,162 in 6 years. That's before depreciation. With depreciation factored in, we're back to the $28,000 plus figure from the previous chapter, and we haven't even added the insurance premium component to the opportunity cost calculation, which, invested at 7% annual returns, would add another $3,000 to $4,000 to the total long-term cost. The insurance requirement isn't predatory in the traditional sense. Lenders genuinely need to protect the asset they're financing, but its cost is rarely presented transparently as part of the total cost of the financed car purchase decision. The $193 per month insurance premium gets mentally bucketed as the cost of having a car, rather than an additional cost of having a loan on a car, which is exactly what a significant portion of it is. The gap insurance industrial complex. While we're on the subject of insurance and car loans, let's talk about gap insurance, which is a product specifically designed to address one of the most obviously problematic features of auto lending, and which has become a significant revenue stream for dealerships and lenders in its own right. Gap insurance covers the difference between what your car is worth and what you owe on the loan if the car is totaled or stolen. It exists specifically because the combination of rapid early depreciation and front-loaded interest means that most financed car buyers are underwater, owing more than the car is worth, for a significant portion of the loan term. If your car is totaled when you owe $28,000 and it's worth $22,000, your regular insurance pays $22,000. You still owe $6,000. Gap insurance covers that $6,000. Gap insurance is, when you think about it, an insurance product that exists specifically to address the financial risk created by the loan itself. The loan puts you underwater. Being underwater creates a financial risk. You buy insurance to cover the risk that the loan created. The loan and the insurance are sold by the same party, the dealership, and the gap insurance premium is, naturally, often rolled into the loan balance, generating interest on the insurance premium. The average gap insurance policy sold through a dealership costs $400 to $700 for the coverage period. The same coverage purchased independently through a regular insurance company typically costs $20 to $40 per year. The dealership gap insurance premium is, on average, 4 to 10 times more expensive than the equivalent independent coverage. This is not disclosed in a way that makes comparison shopping natural or obvious. It is presented as a protective product, priced to sound reasonable relative to the monthly payment, and purchased by the majority of buyers who finance vehicles because the finance manager presents it as sensible risk management. Gap insurance is sensible risk management. It is also a symptom of the fundamental financial problem with auto financing. You are underwater on a depreciating asset, being monetized as a solution to itself by the same parties who created the problem. Chapter 7: The Trade-in Trap, where negative equity goes to multiply. Let's talk about the trade-in. Specifically, let's talk about the single most common way that car loan wealth destruction compounds beyond a single purchase and becomes a generational financial pattern. The trade-in is how most Americans transition from one vehicle to the next, rather than selling their current vehicle privately, which typically yields 10 to 20% more than the trade-in value a dealer offers. They bring the current car to the dealership as part of the next purchase transaction. The dealer offers a trade-in value. That value is applied against the next purchase. The transaction is consolidated and convenient and signed in one sitting. The convenience is genuine. The financial cost of that convenience is also genuine, and it is substantial. Dealers make money on trade-ins in two ways. First, they offer below-market trade-in values, typically $1,000 to $3,000 below what you could get for the same vehicle in a private sale. This spread is profit for the dealer. Second, and more importantly, the trade-in transaction is where negative equity, the amount by which your current loan balance exceeds your car's value, gets quietly rolled into the new loan. Here's how this works in practice. You have a car worth $18,000. You owe $22,000 on the loan. You're $4,000 underwater. You trade in at the dealership. The dealer pays off your $22,000 loan. They give you $18,000 in trade-in credit, which means they've absorbed $4,000 in negative equity. That $4,000 doesn't disappear. It gets added to the purchase price of the new car. If the new car costs $38,000, you now owe $42,000, plus the interest on $42,000, not $38,000, before you've left the lot. Approximately 25% of trade-ins in 2025 involved negative equity, buyers who owed more on their current loan than the vehicle was worth. The average negative equity amount rolled into new loans was approximately $5,341, credible $5,341 of debt from the previous car added to the next loan. At 7.5% interest over 72 months, that $5,341 in rolled negative equity costs an additional $1,150 in interest, bringing the total cost of that negative equity, including interest, to approximately $6,491. And that's assuming the buyer doesn't roll negative equity again on the next trade-in, which statistically they often do. The negative equity spiral is the car loan trap at its most destructive. Each trade-in that involves rolling negative equity starts the new loan at a higher balance than the purchase price of the new car, creating a situation where the buyer is immediately underwater on the new vehicle before depreciation has even had time to do its work. The person in this cycle is not building any equity in their vehicles. They are perpetually behind, perpetually owing more than they own, while making monthly payments that feel like progress but are actually running in place against an ever-shifting deficit. Nearly 1 in 3 car buyers in 2025 who had a trade-in were upside down on their previous loan, and the average amount of negative equity being rolled into new car loans reached a record high. Fred, 1 in 3. A third of the people trading in vehicles are trading in a financial problem, rolling it, laundering it through the trade-in transaction, and beginning the new loan cycle already behind. And because the transaction is processed so smoothly, so normally, by finance professionals who do this every day, and for whom this is an entirely routine feature of the business, the buyer rarely fully appreciates what happened. They got the new car, the payment is manageable, the old car is someone else's problem. Everything feels fine, until it doesn't. The private sale alternative, nobody does. Here's the simple, financially obvious alternative to the trade-in that most car buyers never pursue, despite it being straightforwardly better in almost every financial dimension. Selling your current car privately, a private sale of your vehicle, through a platform like CarMax's online offer, Carvana, Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, or AutoTrader, typically yields $1,500 to $4,000 more than a dealership trade-in for the same vehicle. For someone who trades cars every 4 to 6 years, that differential represents $6,000 to $16,000 in additional proceeds over a lifetime of car transactions, money that either reduces the loan on the next car or goes directly into savings. The private sale requires more effort than the trade-in. You have to list the vehicle. You have to respond to inquiries. You have to manage test drives. You have to handle the title transfer and the payment. This takes time, typically 2 to 4 weeks for a well-priced vehicle in a normal market. The dealership will remind you of this inconvenience whenever you express any interest in the private sale option. What they won't tell you is what that inconvenience is worth in dollars, because the dollars are going from your pocket to theirs. The financial calculus of how much is my time worth is real and valid. For some buyers, particularly those with extremely high hourly earning power, the time cost of a private sale might be comparable to the financial gain. For most buyers, at most income levels, 2 to 3 weeks of occasional effort to earn an additional $2,000 to $3,000 is a return on time that would be extraordinarily attractive in any other context. Chapter 8. The Certified Pre-Owned Illusion, Premium Prices for Used Problems. Let's talk about certified pre-owned vehicles, because if the new car loan is the most obvious version of the wealth killer, the certified pre-owned loan is its subtler, more sophisticated cousin that convinces buyers they're making the financially responsible choice when they're often still making a very expensive one. The CPO program, offered by most major manufacturers, certifies used vehicles that meet certain age and mileage criteria as having passed a multi-point inspection and being backed by an extended warranty. The programs are real, the inspections happen, the warranties are genuine, and CPO vehicles are unambiguously a better managed risk than buying a random used car with no warranty from an individual seller. But here's what the CPO premium costs and whether it's worth it. CPO vehicles typically sell at a 10 to 15% premium over comparable non-certified used vehicles. On a $25,000 vehicle, the CPO premium might be $2,500 to $3,750. The extended warranty included in the CPO certification is valuable, but the same extended warranty could often be purchased independently for $1,000 to $2,000, covering the same components for comparable terms. The CPO premium, in many cases, is approximately the cost of the warranty plus a significant convenience fee. The convenience fee is the dealership's margin for providing the peace of mind that the certification represents. Whether that convenience fee is worth $1,500 to $2,000 in additional vehicle cost depends entirely on the buyer's risk tolerance and their ability to independently evaluate vehicle condition, which a pre-purchase inspection from an independent mechanic can do for $100 to $200 and frequently does just as effectively as the manufacturer's certification process. The real issue with CPO financing is that the premium price combined with the financing recreates many of the same depreciation dynamics as a new car purchase, at slightly lower absolute cost but with similar structural features. A $25,000 CPO vehicle financed over 60 months at 6.5% generates $4,350 in interest and depreciates to perhaps $14,000 in 5 years. A combined depreciation and interest cost of approximately $15,000 on a $25,000 vehicle. Better than the new car math. Still significant. The CPO market has also been distorted by the used car price surge of the 2020 to 2023 period, when supply chain disruptions reduced new car availability and drove used car prices to historic highs. Many CPO vehicles in 2024 and 2025 are still priced at elevated levels relative to their pre-pandemic values, meaning the value proposition of CPO versus new has narrowed considerably. Buyers who assume they're getting a significant bargain relative to new by choosing CPO are, in many cases, getting a more modest discount than the pre-owned framing suggests. Chapter 9. The Financial Goal Assassin. What your car loan is actually killing. Let's zoom out from the mechanics of the car loan itself and look at what it's doing to the rest of your financial life, because the car loan doesn't operate in isolation. It operates inside a financial system, your personal budget, where every dollar committed to the car payment is a dollar unavailable for everything else. And the everything else that car payments are crowding out is not discretionary lifestyle spending. It's the foundational financial goals that determine the quality of your financial life for decades. The emergency fund you don't have. The $748 average monthly car payment is $8,976 per year. The recommended emergency fund for the average American household, 3 to 6 months of living expenses, is approximately $15,000 to $30,000 for a household spending $5,000 per month. Saving. That emergency fund while making a $748 monthly car payment is genuinely difficult at modest income levels. The car payment competes directly with emergency fund contributions, and the car payment always has the advantage of being mandatory. The consequences of missing it are immediate and severe, while the emergency fund contribution is optional in any given month. The result is predictable. Households with significant car payments consistently have lower emergency fund balances than comparable households without them. When the emergency arrives, the medical bill, the job loss, the home repair, the household without an emergency fund reaches for the credit card. The credit card balance grows, the interest compounds, the financial stress intensifies, and somewhere in the background, the car payment continues. $748 per month, mandatory, regardless of the emergency, regardless of the other competing demands, regardless of whether the month is good or catastrophic. The retirement contributions you're skipping. Here's the opportunity cost calculation that should sit at the center of every car purchase decision. What would the car payment be worth in 30 years if it were invested instead? $748 per month invested in a diversified index fund portfolio earning 7% average annual returns for 30 years grows to approximately $906,000, nearly $1 million. From the car payment, that you're currently sending to a lender every month in exchange for driving a depreciating asset. Now, it's not entirely fair to compare the full car payment to the alternative because some transportation cost is necessary, you need to get places, and that costs money regardless of whether you finance. But the question isn't car versus no car, it's financed new car versus paid off used car. The person who drives a $8,000 paid off used car has transportation costs too: insurance, maintenance, gas, eventual replacement, but their monthly transportation cash outflow is dramatically lower than $748. The difference between their transportation cost and $748, let's call it $500 to $600 per month, is the amount they could redirect to investment. $550 per month invested at 7% for 30 years, $672,000, over 2/3 of $1,000,000. From the difference between a car payment and a paid-off car transportation budget, this is not a hypothetical, this is arithmetic. And the arithmetic is the reason that the car loan is, with meaningful confidence, the #1 wealth killer for ordinary Americans. Not because it's the most dramatic single financial mistake, but because it is the most expensive recurring financial mistake, compounding over decades, normalized to invisibility, and robbing the average American of retirement security that the numbers show they could otherwise have achieved, the homeownership dream deferred. Here's another victim of the car payment that most people don't explicitly connect: the down payment that never gets saved, the mortgage that never gets approved, the home that never gets purchased, because the car payment is consuming the monthly surplus that would otherwise fund the savings account. Mortgage lenders look at debt-to-income ratio, the percentage of gross monthly income committed to debt payments. A $748 car payment on a $60,000 annual income represents 15% of gross monthly income. Pair that with $300 in student loan payments and $150 in credit card minimums, and you're at 24% DTI from non-housing debt alone. Most lenders want total DTI, including the proposed mortgage payment, to stay below 43%. At 24% existing DTI, the maximum mortgage payment the lender will approve is roughly $950 to $1,000 per month, which in most markets qualifies for a relatively modest home. The car payment isn't just consuming monthly income, it's directly limiting the mortgage you can qualify for, which limits the home you can buy, which limits the equity building wealth creation that homeownership provides. The person who eliminates the car payment, who drives a paid-off car and redirects $748 per month to savings and debt payoff, improves their DTI ratio dramatically, improves their monthly savings capacity, builds a down payment faster, and qualifies for a meaningfully larger mortgage. The car payment's effect on homeownership timeline and purchasing power is direct, measurable, and significant. The investment account that stays empty beyond retirement and homeownership, the car payment is a consistent suppressor of general wealth-building investment activity. The surveys on why Americans don't invest more consistently point to don't have enough money left over after expenses as the primary reason. The car payment is, for the average household, one of the largest contributors to that not enough left over reality. When financial advisors work with clients to find money to invest, the car payment is frequently the single largest discretionary expense that can be meaningfully addressed, because unlike rent, utilities, and food, the car payment is a function of a prior decision that can be changed. You can't renegotiate your rent mid-lease, you can't eat less indefinitely, but you can drive a different car. The financial impact of driving a paid-off $10,000 car instead of a financed $35,000 car is, in terms of monthly cash flow available for investment, the largest single lever most ordinary Americans have access to. Chapter 10. What wealthy people do differently. The transportation secret. Nobody talks about. Here's the part of the video where we look at what the people who actually build wealth do about cars, because it turns out the pattern is remarkably consistent, well documented, and directly contrary to what most people assume about successful people and their vehicles. The assumption most people carry about wealthy people, and cars go something like this: wealthy people drive expensive cars because they can afford to, and when I'm wealthy, I'll drive an expensive car too. The car is the reward for the financial success. The aspiration is the vehicle. The vehicle represents the aspiration. This assumption is partially true of people who appear wealthy. It is largely false of people who actually are wealthy, and the distinction between the two categories is enormous and important. The classic research from The Millionaire Next Door by Thomas Stanley found that the most common vehicle driven by American millionaires, people with a net worth exceeding $1 million, was not a luxury European import, but a domestic pickup truck or a Toyota. The median price paid for a vehicle by a millionaire was substantially lower than the general population's median financed vehicle cost, and the majority of millionaires who bought vehicles paid cash rather than financing. Yahoo Finance paid cash for a less expensive vehicle than the average American financed, while having a net worth over $1 million. This is not the car story that advertising tells, it is the car story that the data tells, and the gap between the two versions is a window into one of the most fundamental dynamics of wealth building. The logic is not complicated. Wealthy people understand that cars are consumption expenses, not investments. They understand depreciation intuitively. They have enough financial sophistication to recognize when a purchase is generating returns and when it's consuming resources without producing them. And cars, unambiguously, consume resources without producing returns. The wealthy person who pays $80,000 for a luxury car has made a consumption decision, not an investment decision. They can afford to make that consumption decision because their wealth can absorb it. The person earning $60,000 who finances a $45,000 car has made the same type of decision, consumption without return, but cannot absorb it in the same way, and the inability to absorb it is part of why they remain at $60,000 while the millionaire's wealth keeps growing. Warren Buffett, whose net worth exceeds $130 billion, famously drove a used Cadillac XTS for years before upgrading, at his daughter's insistence, to a Cadillac XTS that he also paid cash for. He has described car depreciation as terrible from an investment standpoint, and has consistently expressed that the money spent on expensive vehicles has enormous opportunity cost relative to what the same capital could generate if invested. Ramsey Solutions. A 2023 study by Experian found that luxury vehicles, Mercedes, BMW, Audi, are disproportionately owned by people in the $75,000 to $150,000 income range, not by people at the highest wealth levels. The wealthiest Americans, as a group, drive less expensive vehicles proportionate to their net worth than the upper middle income group that most visibly uses vehicles as status signals. Carry the people who most aggressively use cars as status signals are, statistically, the people who can least afford the financial consequences of doing so. The aspirational car purchase, the vehicle that projects the wealth you want to appear to have, financed at the level you can afford to project, is most common among people for whom it is most financially damaging. The people who actually have the wealth often drive something more modest, because they've internalized something that the wealth-aspiring buyer hasn't. The car is not the wealth. The car is what you buy instead of wealth. The specific transportation strategy of wealth builders. What does the transportation approach of actual wealth builders look like in practice? It follows a recognizable pattern with several consistent features. They buy used vehicles that are 2 to 5 years old. The steepest depreciation, the 15 to 25% first-year drop, has already occurred. Someone else absorbed it. The vehicle is now depreciating more slowly and is worth significantly less than new without being significantly worse as transportation. The gap between a 3-year-old Toyota Camry and a new Toyota Camry in terms of transportation utility is minimal. The gap in price is $8,000 to $12,000. Wealth builders reliably choose the 3-year-old car and invest the $8,000 to $12,000 difference. They pay cash when possible, and when they finance at the shortest reasonable term. Cash purchases eliminate interest entirely. Short-term loans, 36 to 48 months rather than 72 to 84, minimize total interest paid and ensure the buyer builds equity in the vehicle faster, reducing the underwater period and creating a positive equity position that enables clean, negative equity-free trade-ins. They hold vehicles longer. The wealth killer cycle involves buying and trading every 3 to 5 years, always in the highest depreciation period, always restarting the loan cycle, often rolling negative equity. Wealth builders hold cars for 8 to 12 years through the period where depreciation flattens and the vehicle delivers maximum transportation value relative to remaining cost. The car that cost $25,000 new, purchased used for $17,000 at age 3, held until age 12, has delivered 9 years of transportation for an initial $17,000 plus maintenance, dramatically cheaper per year of use than the person who cycles through 3 financed vehicles over the same period. They separate transportation from identity. This is the hardest part, the part that requires genuine psychological work in a culture where cars are status signals. Wealth builders who understand what cars cost them have made the mental shift from "my car represents who I am" to "my car gets me where I need to go." This shift doesn't require driving something dangerous or embarrassingly unreliable. It requires being willing to drive something that is adequate rather than impressive, and finding the identity expression that the aspirational car purchase was providing through other, less financially destructive channels. Chapter 11, The Dealer Add-on Avalanche, Thousands More. You didn't plan for "let's spend some time in the finance office," because this is where the car loan wealth killing reaches its most concentrated and most profitable for everyone except you phase. The finance office is where the vehicle purchase you negotiated out on the floor gets transformed, through the skilled presentation of a series of additional products, into a significantly larger financial commitment than you realized you were making. The finance manager, the person you meet after agreeing on a vehicle price, is not primarily a loan processor. They are a sales professional. Their role is to maximize the revenue generated from your transaction through the sale of financing products, insurance products, and vehicle add-ons that are presented as protections and enhancements, but that are, in aggregate, extraordinarily profitable for the dealer and of variable, and often dubious value to the buyer. The typical menu of finance office products includes gap insurance, discussed earlier, extended warranty or vehicle service contract, paint and fabric protection, tire and wheel protection, key replacement insurance, windshield protection, credit life and disability insurance, and various cosmetic or appearance packages that were applied to the vehicle before you arrived and are being presented as a fait accompli rather than an optional selection. Each of these products has a legitimate underlying purpose. Each of them is also priced at a substantial markup to the dealer's cost. The average finance and insurance product revenue per vehicle sold at U.S. dealerships in 2025 was approximately $1,800 to $2,200, representing the single highest margin component of the average vehicle sale, higher even than the vehicle itself. Bank rate. The products sold in the finance office generate more profit per transaction than the car you spent an hour negotiating on the showroom floor. The presentation of these products is skillfully managed. They are introduced one at a time. Each is framed in terms of the monthly payment impact. This adds just $15 per month to your payment, rather than the total cost. $15 per month over 72 months is $1,080 in total cost. If 4 products are presented with similar framing, the aggregate addition to the loan is $4,320, which will cost approximately $4,900 with interest over the loan term. The buyer, focused on monthly payment increments of $15 to $25 each, rarely calculates the total. The finance office products also have something in common that makes them particularly worth scrutinizing. Many of them can be purchased independently after the sale at significantly lower cost than the dealership charges. Extended warranties, vehicle service contracts are available from third-party providers at 30 to 50% of dealership pricing for comparable coverage. Gap insurance, as noted, is available through regular auto insurers at a fraction of dealership cost. Paint and fabric protection is a product applied at the factory or lot and priced at enormous markup for what is typically a coating application. The simple rule for navigating the finance office: decline everything initially. Take the documents home. Research each product independently. If you determine that gap coverage, for example, is genuinely appropriate for your situation, purchase it from your existing auto insurer rather than rolling it into the loan. The finance manager will use urgency, convenience, and the complexity of revisiting decisions at a later date to encourage you to decide in the moment. The moment is exactly when you should not decide, because the environment is specifically designed to make impulsive decisions feel reasonable. Chapter 12. the lifetime cost calculator, running the real numbers. From 25 to 65, let's do something that almost nobody does when they sign a car. Loan agreement, something that, if it were done routinely and honestly, would fundamentally change how most Americans approach vehicle purchases for the rest of their lives. Let's calculate the total, lifetime, opportunity cost-adjusted financial impact of the car loan habit. From the beginning of adulthood to retirement, we're going to compare two people. They are identical in every way that matters for this calculation. Same age, same income, same investment returns, same basic transportation needs. The only difference is how they handle cars. Person A, let's call them Alex, follows the standard American car ownership pattern. At 25, Alex buys a new car for $35,000 with a $2,000 down payment, financing $33,000 at 7.5% over 72 months. At 31, Alex trades in and buys another new car, rolling $3,000 in negative equity into a new $38,000 loan. At 37, the same. At 43, the same. At 49, the same. At 55, the same. 6 car purchase cycles between ages 25 and 65, each following the standard pattern with slightly increasing vehicle prices, reflecting real-world inflation and feature creep. Person B, let's call them Blake, takes a different approach entirely. At 25, Blake buys a 3-year-old used car for $14,000 cash, using savings accumulated during early working years. Blake drives that car for 9 years, until it has 150,000 miles and is fully depreciated. At 34, Blake buys another 3-year-old used car for $16,000 cash, the purchase funded by the money that would have gone to car payments, which was instead invested. At 43, the same. At 52, the same. 4 car purchases between 25 and 65, each paid in cash, each for a reliable used vehicle. Now let's run the numbers. Alex's car ownership cost, 25 to 65, 6 car purchase cycles, each involving loan interest. Average $8,500 per cycle, rising slightly with vehicle price over time, equals $51,000 total interest mandatory insurance premium uplift over liability only. $1,687 per year times 40 years equals $680,480 dealer finance office products, gap, extended warranty, etc. Average $3,000 per cycle. Jaffend or $18,000. Negative equity rolled into successive loans. Average $4,000 per trade-in sinem fim trade-ins Jaffend og $20,000 in additional loan principal, plus the interest on that principal, approximately $9,000. Total direct additional cost beyond basic transportation value, approximately $165,000. That $165,000 was not invested. It went to lenders, dealers, and insurance companies. Its opportunity cost, what it would have been worth invested at 7% annual returns over the relevant periods, represents an additional $280,000 to $320,000 in foregone wealth at retirement. Combined direct cost and opportunity cost, approximately $450,000 in lifetime wealth destruction from the car loan habit. Blake's car ownership cost, 25 to 65. 4 cash purchases of used vehicles, approximately $60,000 in total vehicle acquisition cost across 40 years, but paid from money that was earning returns until deployed. No loan interest, $0 insurance at liability plus modest comprehensive on used vehicles. Approximately $900 per year average equals $36,000 over 40 years. Still significant, but lower than full coverage on financed new vehicles. No dealer finance office products, $0, no negative equity, $0, total additional cost beyond basic transportation value, approximately $36,000 in excess insurance premiums. The difference between Alex's $165,000 in direct excess costs and Blake's $36,000 is $129,000. That $129,000 difference invested at 7% over the relevant period starting at age 25 grows to approximately $680,000 by age 65. $680,000. The difference at retirement between the car loan lifestyle and the cash used car lifestyle, on the same income, doing the same job, living the same life in every other dimension. The transportation choices alone account for over $500,000 in retirement wealth difference. This is the number that deserves to be in every car dealership printed on the wall next to the financing options poster. This is the number that the industry's entire marketing apparatus is designed to prevent you from calculating. And this is the number that explains more clearly than anything else why the car loan is the number one wealth killer for ordinary Americans. Chapter 13, The Alternative Transportation Playbook. Exactly what to do. Instead, all right, we've spent considerable time on the problem. Let's spend equal time on the solution, not the vague, just be more responsible solution that personal finance content loves to dispense without operational specificity. But the actual step-by-step, here's exactly what to do alternative transportation strategy that wealth builders use. This is not a one-size-fits-all prescription. The right vehicle and the right acquisition strategy depend on your income, your current debt situation, your geographic location, your family size, and your career circumstances. But the principles that underlie the wealth-building transportation strategy are consistent across all of those variables. Here they are. Principle 1. Buy used. Always. Unless the math is genuinely exceptional. The first-year depreciation on a new vehicle is a tax you pay for the privilege of being the first owner. It is approximately $5,000 to $10,000 on most vehicles, paid in the first 12 months in the form of value that evaporates from the asset. There is no recovery from this loss. There is no scenario in which you get it back. You pay it, the car loses it, and that's the end of the transaction. The 2 to 3 year old used vehicle avoids this tax entirely. Someone else paid it. The depreciation curve has flattened. The vehicle has gone through its sharpest value decline and is now losing value more slowly. You acquire it at a price that reflects its actual current market value rather than its aspirational new car premium, and you begin ownership at a point where the depreciation to value ratio is dramatically more favorable. The specific sweet spot for used vehicle purchases, in terms of value optimization, is typically 2 to 4 years old with 25,000 to 50,000 miles. At this stage, the vehicle has absorbed the worst of its depreciation, still has significant useful life remaining, and is typically still covered by portions of the manufacturer's powertrain warranty. It is, in almost every practical sense, as good a car as the new version. It gets you to the same places, carries the same passengers, has most of the same features, at 25 to 35% less cost. Consumer Reports data consistently shows that vehicles from manufacturers like Toyota, Honda, Mazda, and Subaru regularly achieve 200,000 plus miles with proper maintenance. A 3-year-old Toyota Camry with 35,000 miles has, statistically, the majority of its useful life ahead of it. Freedom for all Americans. The idea that used cars are risky, unreliable, and likely to generate repair costs that offset their lower purchase price is not well supported by the data on modern vehicles from reliable manufacturers. It is, however, a narrative that benefits new car sales and that the industry actively cultivates. Principle 2. Pay cash, if at all possible. And here's how the goal of a wealth-building transportation strategy is to eventually be in a position where vehicle purchases are made with cash, eliminating interest entirely and removing the lender from the transaction. Getting to that position may require a transitional period, but the transition has a specific path. Step 1. If you currently have a car loan, do not trade in before it's paid off unless you have positive equity. Make the payments, pay it off. Resist every dealer solicitation that arrives in the mail offering to help you upgrade early, which is dealership language for let us roll your negative equity into a new loan and restart the cycle. Step 2. When the loan is paid off, do not stop making the payment. Redirect the payment, the full monthly amount you were sending to the lender, into a dedicated vehicle savings account. This is the move that almost nobody makes, and that changes everything. The car payment infrastructure, the automatic monthly transfer, the budgeted amount, already exists in your financial behavior. You are already accustomed to not having that money. Redirect it to yourself rather than to the lender. At $570 per month into a high-yield savings account earning 4.5% APY, you accumulate $7,200 in the first year. In 2 years, $14,600. In 3 years, $22,200. In 4 years, you have nearly $30,000 saved, enough to purchase a very good, very reliable used vehicle with cash, while driving the fully paid off car that still runs fine and has zero monthly payment. Step 3. When the current paid off car genuinely needs replacement, purchase the used vehicle with the accumulated cash. No loan, no interest, no lender, no finance office. A private transaction or a dealership transaction where you are a cash buyer, which gives you negotiating power that financed buyers don't have, because cash deals close immediately, with certainty, and without the risk of financing falling through. Step 4. Continue redirecting what would have been the car payment into the vehicle savings account, rebuilding toward the next cash purchase while the current vehicle serves its purpose. This is the sustainable transportation cycle, the one that keeps lenders permanently out of the picture. Principle 3. Separate transportation from identity. This is the principle that is hardest to operationalize because it's not a financial calculation. It's a values question. And values questions require honest self-examination rather than spreadsheet modeling. Ask yourself with genuine honesty, why do you want the car you want? If the answer involves any component of what other people will think, your neighbors, your colleagues, people in traffic, your parents, your ex, you have identified a status signaling motivation. Status signaling is a legitimate human desire. It is also an extraordinarily expensive one when it's driving a $748 monthly car payment, and the return on investment of status signaling through vehicles is, by any reasonable measure, among the lowest available. The people whose opinion of you would meaningfully improve based on your vehicle are not the people whose opinion of you matters most. The practical exercise here is to write down what you actually need from a vehicle, not what you want, what you need. Safe transportation for yourself and any dependents, reliability sufficient to get to work and manage your life, capacity appropriate to your actual regular use, fuel economy appropriate to your regular driving distances. That's the list. Everything beyond that list is a preference, and preferences are valid, but they should be funded consciously from financial strength, not borrowed against a future self who will pay the interest. Principle 4. Think in total cost, not monthly payment. Whenever you evaluate any vehicle purchase, force yourself through the total cost calculation before you allow the monthly payment number to enter your thinking. The total cost calculation is purchase price plus total interest paid plus insurance premium uplift plus estimated maintenance over ownership period minus estimated resale value at end of ownership period. That number, the net cost of transportation over the ownership period, is the real price of the vehicle. It is almost always significantly larger than the sticker price, and it is the only number that accurately represents what you're committing to. A new car that costs $35,000 and has a monthly payment of $570 is not a $35,000 purchase or a $570 per month purchase. It is, as we've calculated, a $41,000 to $45,000 total cost purchase that produces an asset worth $14,000 at the end of the loan term. The net cost of transportation from that vehicle, approximately $27,000 to $31,000 over 6 years. That's $375 to $430 per month in net transportation cost, before insurance, before gas, before maintenance. A used car that costs $14,000 cash, owned for 6 years, and worth $6,000 at the end of that period has a net transportation cost of $8,000 over 6 years, approximately $111 per month in net transportation cost. Before insurance and maintenance, yes, but the insurance is cheaper on a paid-off used car, and the maintenance, while real, typically doesn't approach the $16,000 to $22,000 difference in net cost. The total cost frame changes every purchase decision you'll make. Apply it ruthlessly. Chapter 14. Breaking the cycle, if you're already in it, the escape plan. Let's talk specifically to the person who watched the first half of this video nodding vigorously and is now sitting with the uncomfortable realization that they are currently in the car. Loan cycle. They have a payment, possibly a significant one, possibly on a vehicle that is worth less than they owe, and they are wondering, what now? First, don't panic, and specifically, don't panic trade. The most common and most financially damaging response to realizing you're in a bad car loan situation is to immediately go to the dealership and get out of the situation by trading in. which, as we've established, typically rolls the negative equity into a new loan and perpetuates rather than resolves the cycle. The desire to make the bad feeling go away by doing something is understandable. In this specific case, doing something often makes the situation worse. The right approach depends on your specific situation. If you have positive equity in your current vehicle, you are in the best possible position among current car loan holders. Your vehicle is worth more than you owe. You have options. The question is whether to keep the vehicle, sell it, or trade it in. And the answer depends on how much equity you have, how well the vehicle suits your needs, and how aggressive you want to be about escaping the cycle. If the vehicle suits your needs and the loan is nearly paid off, the best move is usually to pay it off and then hold the vehicle for as long as it remains reliable. Implementing the payment to savings account strategy described in the previous chapter from the moment the loan is retired. If you have significant equity and want to accelerate the escape, consider selling the vehicle privately, getting the above trade-in value that a private sale delivers, using the proceeds to pay off the loan, and purchasing a reliable used vehicle with the remaining equity. This move might temporarily put you in a less impressive vehicle. It will permanently improve your financial trajectory. If you are underwater, you owe more than the car is worth. This is the most common and most uncomfortable situation, and it requires a specific and somewhat counterintuitive strategy. Stay in the vehicle and pay down the loan aggressively until you reach positive equity before making any move. Every extra dollar you put toward the principal balance of your loan while underwater is a dollar that converts a negative equity position into a positive one, or at minimum, reduces the deficit. Making extra principal payments, even $100 to $200 per month above the minimum, can significantly reduce the time you spend underwater and the size of the negative equity at any given point. While you're paying down the loan, maintain the vehicle. A car that's $4,000 underwater is not a reason to spend $6,000 on major repairs. At that point, the repair cost exceeds the equity benefit, and the conversation shifts to whether the vehicle should be replaced even with the negative equity consequence. But normal maintenance, oil changes, tires, brakes, should continue because a reliable vehicle that's underwater is still delivering transportation value that justifies the maintenance cost. Making bi-weekly mortgage-style payments on your auto loan, half the monthly payment every 2 weeks rather than the full payment once a month, results in one extra payment per year and can reduce the loan term by 4 to 6 months on a 72-month loan, saving several $100s in interest. Smart Asset. The same principle applies to car loans. Bi-weekly payments, combined with any extra principal payments you can manage, accelerate the loan payoff and reduce the total interest paid without requiring a dramatic change in monthly cash flow. If you have multiple car loans in a household, the multi-car loan household is particularly vulnerable to the compounding effects we've discussed, and the escape strategy requires prioritization. Identify which loan has the highest interest rate and direct extra payments toward it, the debt avalanche method. Simultaneously, evaluate whether both vehicles are genuinely necessary. Many two-car households could function with one car for a period, or with one car and strategic use of rideshare for the second person's occasional transportation needs, saving the entirety of one monthly payment for aggressive debt reduction on the remaining loan. The calculation here, if eliminating one car payment frees up $650 per month, and that $650 is applied entirely to accelerating payoff of the remaining loan, the time to full payoff and positive equity can be cut dramatically. The inconvenience of a single car period is real and should not be minimized. The financial benefit, escaping the second loan quickly and beginning the wealth-building transportation cycle, is also real and should not be minimized. Chapter 15, The Car Culture Reckoning. Why this is hard and why it matters. Before we get to the conclusion, let's spend a chapter acknowledging something that purely financial analysis tends to skip over. The car is not just a financial instrument in American culture, it is a cultural institution. It is tied to identity, to freedom, to adolescence, to aspiration, to the specific American mythology of the open road and the self-made person and the machine that takes you wherever you want to go. Dismissing the emotional and cultural dimensions of car ownership as irrational vanity is both intellectually lazy and practically ineffective. Cars matter to people. They matter for reasons that are not purely financial and that are not going to disappear because someone made a compelling YouTube video about depreciation curves. The car you drove as a teenager, the road trips, the freedom of being 16 with a driver's license and somewhere to be, the specific pride of a vehicle that suits your personality. These are real human experiences, and they create emotional attachments to vehicles that pure financial logic cannot simply override. The question is not whether cars matter emotionally. They do. The question is whether the emotional value of a specific vehicle, a new one, a financed one, an expensive one, is worth the specific financial cost it imposes. And that cost-benefit analysis, when conducted honestly, almost always reveals that the emotional premium of the expensive financed vehicle over an adequate, reliable used one is far smaller than the financial cost difference suggests. Put plainly, the emotional experience of driving a $45,000 financed car is not dramatically better than the emotional experience of driving a $15,000 paid-off car. The car gets you to the same places. It plays the same music. It provides the same shelter from the weather. The difference is the nicer interior materials, the additional features, the newer design are real but modest in the lived experience of daily commuting and erranding. The financial difference, $30,000 in acquisition cost, plus interest, plus opportunity cost, is enormous and lasting. Behavioral economists call this the focusing illusion, the tendency to overestimate the impact of any single factor on overall life satisfaction. When you're at the dealership, the car is the most salient thing in your environment. Its quality, its features, its feel seem enormously important. In daily life, a month after purchase, the car becomes background. You stop noticing the features, the new car smell fades, and the contribution to daily life satisfaction returns to something modest and proportionate. Meanwhile, the payment continues at full force for 72 months. Empower. Understanding the focusing illusion doesn't make it disappear, but it does provide a useful check on in-the-moment car purchase decision-making. When the car is consuming your full attention at the dealership, remind yourself that in 6 months, you will not notice the leather seats at all. You will notice the $570 payment every month. The payment is permanent. The emotional premium is temporary. The broader cultural reckoning with car culture that the financial data demands is genuinely difficult, because it requires pushing back against messages that are everywhere, that have been everywhere since before you were born, and that are backed by one of the largest and most sophisticated marketing industries in human history. The car industry spends approximately $35 billion per year on advertising in the United States. That investment is specifically designed to make you feel that the car you drive is a reflection of who you are, that a better car means a better you, and that the monthly payment is a small price for the identity and freedom and status that the vehicle represents. Against that $35 billion, the argument that depreciation curves and opportunity cost calculations should drive your transportation decisions is fighting uphill, which is why so few people make the financially optimal transportation choice, and why the car loan remains, year after year, the #1 wealth killer for ordinary Americans, not because the math is complex, but because the emotional and cultural infrastructure built around the car purchase is so complete, so pervasive, and so expertly maintained that piercing it requires an unusual degree of deliberate financial consciousness. You now have that consciousness. Use it. Chapter 16. The specific numbers. What changing this one thing does to your retirement. Let's end the data section of this video with the most motivating calculation of all, the specific, concrete, retirement account balance impact of changing your transportation strategy starting today. Not over a 40-year lifetime that feels abstract and distant, but over the next 10, 20, and 30 years, with numbers that are specific enough to be meaningful regardless of where you currently are in your working life. Scenario: you are 35 years old with 30 years until retirement. Current situation: $650 per month car payment on a financed vehicle. Alternative scenario: you sell the current vehicle, pay off the loan, let's assume you have modest positive equity or break-even, and purchase a reliable $12,000 used car with a combination of saved funds and a very short 24-month loan at $520 per month. After 24 months, the loan is paid off. You redirect the $520 previously going to the loan plus an additional $130 in monthly savings from lower insurance costs, totaling $650 per month, into a stock market index fund returning 7% annually, $650 per month invested at 7% for 28 years, the 30-year period minus the 2-year payoff, $680,000 at retirement. If you stay in the current car payment cycle, trading to a new financed vehicle every 5 to 6 years, each with a similar payment, and instead invest $0 from this source at retirement, the difference, $680,000, from one financial decision made at 35, that required no income increase, no side hustle, no dramatic lifestyle sacrifice, just a different approach to transportation. Scenario: you are 25 years old with 40 years until retirement. You have not yet bought your first car loan. You are considering a $35,000 new car on a 72-month loan at $570 per month versus a $12,000 used car purchased with $8,000 saved and a 12-month loan for $4,000. After 12 months, the small loan is paid off. You invest the $570 per month difference between the new car payment and your used car's minimal ongoing cost at 7% for 39 years. $570 per month at 7% for 39 years, $1,320,000, $1.3 million, from the car decision made at 25, before any other financial choices, before salary increases that would allow higher contributions, before employer matching, before any other investment activity, just from redirecting the car payment to an index fund for 39 years. This is not a trick. This is compound interest applied to a large, consistent monthly cash flow that most Americans are currently sending to auto lenders. The math is straightforward, and the result is genuinely staggering, which is exactly why it needs to be stated as plainly as possible. The car loan, over a working lifetime, costs most Americans the majority of what they need for a comfortable retirement. The modest, realistic version, for those who find the above scenarios too extreme, who genuinely need a more reliable or more capable vehicle than a $12,000 used car for work or family reasons, the modest version of this strategy still produces remarkable results. Instead of a new $35,000 vehicle on a 72-month loan at $570, you purchase a 3-year-old $22,000 vehicle on a 48-month loan at $525. After 48 months, you pay off the loan and redirect $400 per month, the payment minus the lower insurance cost of the used vehicle, into an index fund. You hold the vehicle for 5 more years, totaling 9 years of ownership, before purchasing the next paid-off used car with accumulated savings. $400 per month at 7% from age 30 to age 65, $680,000, from a modest adjustment to the car strategy, not an elimination of car ownership, just a shift to used vehicles and shorter loan terms. You arrive at retirement with $680,000 in additional wealth compared to the standard new car every 5 years finance cycle. These numbers are the answer to the question this video started with: what is the #1 wealth killer for ordinary Americans? It is the car loan. Not because any single loan is catastrophic, but because the habit, the cycle, the normalized pattern of repeated financed vehicle purchases across a working lifetime quietly and relentlessly extracts wealth at a scale that most people never calculate and therefore never fully appreciate until it's too late to fully recover. Chapter 17: The Manufacturer Financing Trap, when 0% isn't actually 0%. Here's a chapter dedicated to the single most effective marketing tool in the automotive industry's arsenal, the one that has convinced millions of financially cautious, debt-averse, otherwise sensible Americans to finance vehicles they could have purchased differently, the tool that makes people who would normally recoil from the word loan enthusiastically sign financing paperwork, the offer that sounds so good it seems almost irresponsible not to take it. 0% financing, 0% APR offers, manufacturer-subsidized financing deals that advertise no interest on vehicle purchases for qualified buyers are the automotive industry's most powerful psychological weapon precisely because they appear to eliminate the primary financial objection to car loans. If there's no interest, the loan argument collapses, right? If you're not paying anything extra to borrow the money, why wouldn't you finance? Why tie up your cash in a depreciating asset when you can keep it invested and make payments for free? This logic is seductive. It is also, in almost every real-world application, significantly less favorable than it appears. Here's why. First, 0% financing is not universally available. It is available to qualified buyers, which typically means buyers with excellent credit, scores of 720 or above in most programs, sometimes 750 or above for the best terms. The majority of buyers who walk into a dealership excited about the 0% offer discover in the finance office that they don't qualify and are instead offered 4.9%, 6.9%, or whatever the lender will approve for their actual credit profile. The 0% offer functioned as the marketing hook. The actual financing terms are the product. Second, and more importantly, 0% financing is almost always mutually exclusive with the cash purchase discount, and the cash purchase discount is frequently larger than the value of the interest you'd save through financing. Manufacturers offer 0% financing as a promotional tool to move inventory. They also offer cashback or price discounts for buyers who don't use the promotional financing. The cash discount is typically $1,500 to $4,000 on vehicles where 0% financing is available. On a $35,000 vehicle with a $3,000 cashback offer versus 0% financing over 60 months, the buyer who takes the cash back and pays cash or finances through their credit union at a competitive rate typically comes out ahead by $1,500 to $2,500 compared to the buyer who takes the 0% offer and forgoes the cash discount. Credible. The math. $3,000 cash discount on a $35,000 purchase brings the price to $32,000. If you finance $32,000 through your credit union at 5% over 60 months, you pay $4,300 in interest, making the true total cost $36,300. If you take the 0% financing at the full $35,000 price with no discount, your total cost is $35,000. The credit union financing option, which sounds worse because it has a visible interest rate, actually costs $1,300 less than the 0% offer that sounds better. The 0% APR is not zero total cost. Third, 0% financing deals typically come with shorter terms than standard financing, 36 or 48 months rather than 72 or 84 months. The monthly payments on 0% financing over 36 months on a $35,000 vehicle are approximately $972 per month. At that payment level, the deal is only accessible to buyers with genuinely high incomes and low existing debt obligations. Many buyers who intend to take the 0% deal discover that the required monthly payment to keep the term short enough to make the math work is higher than their DTI ratio allows, at which point the finance manager helpfully offers to extend the term, which reintroduces the interest that the 0% offer was supposed to eliminate. Fourth, the 0% offer is only 0% on the financing itself. The depreciation, the insurance, the dealer add-ons, the negative equity dynamics, all of these continue to operate exactly as they do with any other financing arrangement. 0% interest on a depreciating asset is still a depreciating asset. The loan is cheaper. The purchase decision's other financial consequences are unchanged. The 0% financing offer is not a scam. It is a genuinely useful product for a specific buyer, one with excellent credit, sufficient income to handle a short-term high payment, who would have purchased the specific vehicle anyway, who is buying during the promotional period, and who correctly calculates that the interest savings exceed the foregone cash discount. This buyer exists. They are not the majority of people who get excited about 0% financing offers and walk into dealerships planning to take advantage of them. For everyone else, the 0% offer is a marketing tool that redirects attention from the vehicle price, the total ownership cost, and the depreciation reality, the things that actually determine whether the purchase makes financial sense, toward the single variable of interest rate, which is real but not the primary driver of the financial outcome. Chapter 18, The Electric Vehicle Complication, New Technology, Same Old Loan Trap. We cannot have an honest 2026 conversation about car loans without addressing the electric vehicle market because EV adoption is accelerating rapidly and bringing with it a specific set of financial dynamics that deserve clear-eyed analysis rather than either the evangelical enthusiasm of EV advocates or the reflexive skepticism of EV critics. The core question about EVs and the car loan trap is simple. Does the electrification of the vehicle fleet change the fundamental financial analysis? Does the prospect of lower fuel costs, lower maintenance costs, and generous federal tax credits make financing an EV a fundamentally different and potentially more defensible financial decision than financing a comparable ICE vehicle? The short answer, somewhat, but less than the marketing suggests. And the car loan trap applies to EVs with essentially the same force as it applies to gasoline vehicles. The average transaction price for a new electric vehicle in 2025 was approximately $55,000. Significantly higher than the average new ICE vehicle price of $48,000, despite federal tax credits of up to $7,500 for qualifying EVs purchased by qualifying buyers. The effective after-credit price of the average EV remains above the average ICE vehicle price. Fred higher price means higher loan balance, which means more interest paid, which means more wealth extraction through the financing mechanism. The EV's higher purchase price partially offsets the fuel and maintenance savings that make the total cost of ownership argument more competitive. The federal EV tax credit, the $7,500 credit available under the Inflation Reduction Act for qualifying vehicles and buyers, is genuine and meaningful, but it comes with income limitations, vehicle price caps, and battery sourcing, requirements that restrict its applicability. As of 2025, the credit is available as a point-of-sale discount through dealers for qualifying buyers, which means it reduces the financed amount rather than arriving as a tax refund, a genuine improvement in the program's practical utility. However, the income cap of $150,000 for single filers and $300,000 for joint filers, combined with the vehicle MSRP cap of $55,000 for cars and $80,000 for SUVs and trucks, means that a significant portion of buyers targeting premium EV models are ineligible for the full credit. Bank rate. The fuel cost savings of EVs are real and significant in the right circumstances. The average American driving 15,000 miles per year saves approximately $1,200 to $1,800 annually in fuel costs by driving an EV rather than an average gasoline vehicle, assuming typical electricity rates and gasoline prices. Over a 6-year loan term, that's $7,200 to $10,800 in fuel savings. Carry against a loan interest cost of $9,000 to $12,000 on a $45,000 EV, the fuel savings partially but not fully offset the financing cost. The net financial benefit of EV financing, accounting for fuel savings, tax credit, and loan interest, is positive in many scenarios but modest, and it is heavily dependent on local electricity rates, local gasoline prices, driving patterns, and the specific vehicle selected. The maintenance savings of EVs are also real. Fewer moving parts means fewer maintenance intervals and lower per-service costs. Consumer Reports data suggests that EV owners spend approximately 40% less on maintenance than ICE vehicle owners over comparable ownership periods, representing savings of $2,000 to $4,000 over a 6-year ownership period on average vehicles. Smart asset. These savings are meaningful and should be included in any honest total cost of ownership comparison, but here's the EV-specific complication that the car loan trap analysis must acknowledge: depreciation. Electric vehicles, particularly in the 2023 to 2025 period, have experienced depreciation rates that are, in many cases, more severe than comparable ICE vehicles. The rapid pace of EV technology development, longer-range batteries, faster charging, improved features has accelerated the obsolescence of earlier generation EVs in ways that the ICE vehicle market doesn't experience as acutely. The average EV lost approximately 49% of its value in the first 3 years of ownership in 2024 to 2025, compared to approximately 39% for comparable ICE vehicles over the same period. Freedom for all Americans. Higher depreciation means deeper underwater periods on EV loans, larger negative equity at typical trade-in points, and greater total wealth destruction through the depreciation plus interest dynamic, even when fuel and maintenance savings are factored in. The buyer who finances a $55,000 EV trades in at year 4 and rolls $8,000 in negative equity into the next loan has paid more for the privilege of driving electric than the total cost of ownership analysis typically reveals. The wealth-building transportation strategy applies to EVs with the same logic as ICE vehicles. The best financial approach is to purchase a 2 to 4 year old used EV, capturing someone else's steepest depreciation at a significantly lower price than new, hold it for 8 to 10 years through the flatter portion of the depreciation curve, and either pay cash or finance on the shortest possible term. Used EVs with proven battery health records represent, in many cases, exceptional value. The technology is mature enough that battery degradation on well-maintained vehicles is manageable, and the purchase price reflects the severe first ownership depreciation that makes the used EV a dramatically better value than the new EV. The bottom line on EVs and car loans: the EV does not escape the car loan trap. It brings new variables, fuel savings, maintenance savings, tax credits, that partially offset the financing cost in ways that make the analysis more complex. But the fundamental dynamic remains. Financing a vehicle at a high purchase price generates wealth-destroying interest, the asset depreciates regardless of its power source, and the alternative of purchasing used and holding long produces dramatically better financial outcomes than the new vehicle loan cycle. Chapter 19. The Ripple Effect. How the car loan shapes everything else in your financial life. We've spent this video focused primarily on the direct financial costs of the car loan: the interest, the depreciation, the insurance premium, the dealer add-ons, the opportunity cost. But the car loan's impact on your financial life extends significantly beyond its own payment column in your budget. It ripples outward into virtually every other financial dimension of your life in ways that are interconnected and compounding, and that make the true cost of the car loan habit even larger than the direct calculations suggest. How the car loan affects your credit score. Auto loans are installment debt, a category of debt that credit scoring models treat differently from revolving debt like credit cards. A well-managed auto loan, one where payments are made on time consistently, can contribute positively to your credit score over time by demonstrating responsible installment debt management. This is the legitimate credit benefit that dealers and lenders will cite when encouraging you to finance rather than pay cash. What they won't mention is the other side of the credit equation. Taking out a new auto loan creates a hard inquiry on your credit report, a small but real negative impact on your score. The new loan reduces the average age of your accounts, another negative factor, and the large installment balance relative to the original loan amount in the early months, when you're deeply underwater, represents significant debt that affects your overall debt-to-income calculation in ways that can affect every other credit decision you make during the loan period. Having an active car loan with a high balance can reduce the mortgage amount you qualify for by $20,000 to $40,000 in many lending scenarios because the monthly car payment increases your debt-to-income ratio and reduces the remaining capacity for housing debt. The motley fool: the car loan doesn't just cost you money directly, it costs you the mortgage purchasing power that would have allowed you to buy the home in the neighborhood you wanted, at the price point that made sense, at the time when the market conditions were favorable. The car payment and the home purchase are not separate financial decisions. They are competing claims on the same income, evaluated simultaneously by the same lender using the same DTI calculation. How the car loan shapes your career risk tolerance. Here's the most psychologically subtle ripple effect of the car loan, and the one that deserves particular attention, because it operates entirely below the level of conscious financial awareness for most people. The car payment makes you financially fragile in ways that suppress risk-taking in your career. When you have a $748 monthly car payment, along with a mortgage, student loans, and the other fixed obligations of modern American financial life, your total fixed monthly obligations may consume 70 to 80% of your take-home pay. At that level of fixed obligation, missing a single paycheck is a crisis. Losing a job is a catastrophe. Taking a salary cut to pursue a better opportunity is practically impossible. Starting a business is out of the question. Negotiating aggressively for better compensation from a position of strength that requires willingness to walk away is extremely difficult when walking away means missing the car payment. The car payment is part of the financial fragility infrastructure that keeps people in jobs they've outgrown, in careers that are unfulfilling, in organizational cultures that are toxic, because the fixed monthly obligations make the cost of professional risk-taking feel too high. The salary that seemed adequate when the car was purchased becomes non-negotiable when the car payment depends on it. The promotion that would require relocating becomes impossible when the car payment ties you to the current cost structure of a specific city. The entrepreneurial leap that might transform your career and your income becomes unthinkable when the car payment is one of the first things that would disappear if the business took 6 months to generate revenue. Financial flexibility, the ability to take career risks, to absorb professional setbacks, to pursue opportunities that don't pay immediately, requires financial breathing room. The car payment systematically eliminates breathing room. Not entirely and not in isolation. It's one of several fixed obligations that collectively constrain financial flexibility, but it is, for many households, one of the largest and most purely consumptive of those constraints. Eliminating it doesn't just free up $748 per month in cash flow. It frees up psychological and professional latitude that is worth far more than $748 per month in the quality of decisions you're able to make about your career and your future. How the car loan affects your relationship with money. The normalized car payment does something subtle but significant to your relationship with money at a psychological level. It teaches you that large fixed monthly obligations are normal, manageable, and the standard way that adults acquire the things they want. The car payment normalizes debt as a lifestyle feature rather than a tool used sparingly and strategically for genuinely wealth-building purposes. This normalization effect is not limited to car loans. It extends to the entire mindset with which you approach other financial decisions. The person who has a $748 car payment, a $1,800 mortgage, $400 in student loan payments, and $200 in credit card minimums, $3,148 in total fixed monthly debt payments, has internalized a relationship with money that is centered on managing payment obligations rather than building financial capacity. The question they ask about any major purchase is, can I afford the monthly payment, rather than, can I afford this in total? And that question, applied consistently, produces a financial life that is organized around servicing debt rather than building wealth. The car loan is often the first major debt that teaches this payment-centric relationship with money. For many people, it arrives before the mortgage, before significant credit card balances, before the full weight of student loans becomes apparent. It is the entry point into normalized debt servicing, and its influence on financial mindset extends well beyond the vehicle itself into the entire architecture of how a person thinks about money, spending, and what is financially possible. Reversing this mindset, developing a total cost, wealth-building, asset acquisition frame rather than a monthly payment management frame is one of the most valuable financial transformations available to any individual. And one of the most effective catalysts for that transformation is confronting, directly and honestly, what the car loan has been costing you and what it has been shaping in your financial psychology without your full awareness or consent. The social proof problem, and how to use it and reverse one final ripple effect worth addressing. The social proof dynamic that makes the car loan habit self-perpetuating across social networks and peer groups. When everyone you know finances their vehicles, when the car payment is as normal in your social world as the electric bill, the behavior is reinforced not just by marketing and cultural mythology, but by the specific social proof of the people around you. They're all doing it. It must be fine. The people who are not doing it, who drive older paid-off cars, who prioritize investment over vehicle prestige, are the outliers whose behavior requires explanation. This social proof dynamic is real and should be acknowledged as a genuine barrier to behavior change, not dismissed as peer pressure that rational adults should be immune to. Humans are social animals who calibrate behavior against observed norms, and the observed norm in most American social environments is car payment normalization. But social proof works in both directions. As you change your transportation strategy, as you pay off your vehicle, as you begin building the investment account that the former car payment funds, as you hold your paid-off car while colleagues cycle through new loans, you become the social proof for a different approach. The friend who drives the same reliable car for 9 years while building a substantial investment portfolio is a living demonstration that the alternative is viable, practical, and financially superior. The conversation that follows, "How did you do that?" is the beginning of the same awakening that this video is designed to produce. Financial behavior is contagious in both directions. The car loan culture spreads through normalized behavior and social proof. The wealth-building transportation strategy spreads the same way. Every person who makes the shift becomes a data point in someone else's social environment that the shift is possible and worthwhile. The ripple effects of individual financial decisions, at this level, extend well beyond any single household's balance sheet. Chapter 20. The Car Salesperson's Playbook. Every tactic they use and how to counter each one. Let's spend this chapter inside the dealership, specifically inside the mind of the sales professional whose job is to maximize the revenue generated from your visit and whose training has equipped them with a specific field-tested, psychologically sophisticated set of tactics designed to move you from browsing to signed as efficiently as possible. This is not an attack on car salespeople as human beings. Most of them are doing a job, following a system, and applying skills they've been trained in to achieve outcomes their employer measures and rewards. Understanding the tactics is not about villainizing the people who use them. It's about being a sufficiently informed consumer that the tactics don't work on you, or at least work significantly less well than they're designed to. Tactic 1, the needs assessment. That isn't early in every dealership visit. A salesperson will ask you questions that sound like genuine needs assessment. How many miles do you drive per year? What features are most important to you? Do you need all-wheel drive? How many passengers do you regularly carry? These questions sound like helpful information gathering. They are also intelligence gathering, identifying what you value so that those values can be reflected back to you in the vehicle presentation in ways that build emotional attachment before price is discussed. The counter. Answer honestly but guardedly. Provide the minimum information needed to see relevant vehicles. Decline to discuss budget or monthly payment targets at this stage. The moment you anchor on a monthly payment, the entire subsequent negotiation is structured around that number rather than the total purchase price. Tactic 2, the test drive investment. The test drive is not primarily a product demonstration. It is an emotional investment mechanism. Once you have driven a vehicle, felt it, smelled it, experienced it as yours for 15 minutes, the psychological cost of not buying it increases substantially. You have invested time. You have experienced ownership. The salesperson knows this and uses the test drive strategically, often encouraging longer drives, more scenic routes, and stops that allow you to sit in the vehicle. In environments that feel like your actual life. The counter. Take the test drive because you genuinely need to evaluate the vehicle. But take test drives on multiple vehicles, including ones you're less excited about, to normalize the experience and prevent any single vehicle from occupying too much psychological real estate before the financial analysis. Tactic 3. The manager visit. At the point of negotiation, virtually every dealership deploys a manager, either physically or by reference, to create the impression that price decisions are made at a level above the salesperson. "Let me talk to my manager" is not primarily an administrative process. It is a time pressure and authority tactic that accomplishes several things simultaneously. It resets the negotiation by introducing a new authority figure. It creates the impression that the salesperson is on your side, advocating with management for your interests, and it uses wait time, the period when you're sitting in the dealership with nothing to do, to increase the sunk cost of the visit and the psychological pressure to complete the transaction. The counter. Recognize the manager visit for what it is and use the wait time productively. Research the vehicle's market value on your phone. Check competing dealership prices. Remind yourself of your pre-established maximum price and your willingness to walk away if it's not met. The willingness to walk away is the most powerful negotiating tool available to any buyer, and it is only genuinely available to buyers who have done their research beforehand and are not emotionally overinvested in a specific vehicle at a specific dealership. Tactic 4. The 4-square worksheet. Many dealerships use a negotiating tool called the 4-square worksheet. a piece of paper divided into 4 quadrants covering purchase price, trade-in value, monthly payment, and down payment. The 4 square is specifically designed to allow the finance manager to make adjustments across all 4 variables simultaneously, obscuring the relationship between them and making it difficult to track the total cost of any specific combination. When the purchase price gets too high, the monthly payment can be reduced by extending the term, without the purchase price changing. When the trade-in value dispute gets heated, concessions on the trade can be offset by changes to the purchase price. The 4 square creates an impression of flexibility across multiple variables that actually serves to protect the dealer's total revenue while giving the buyer the subjective experience of winning negotiations on specific points. The counter: refuse to negotiate on monthly payment at all. Insist on negotiating purchase price exclusively, with the trade-in value as a completely separate transaction. Once a purchase price is agreed upon, then and only then introduce the financing discussion and come with a pre-approved loan from your bank or credit union as a benchmark against which the dealer's financing must compete. Tactic 5. The urgency creation. This is the only one we have in this color. We have 2 other people looking at this vehicle this weekend. This incentive offer expires at the end of the month. Urgency is manufactured systematically in automotive sales because urgency is the enemy of careful deliberation, and careful deliberation is the enemy of impulse purchases at favorable to dealer terms. The counter: treat every urgency claim with healthy skepticism. In a market with thousands of dealerships and extensive online inventory visibility, the claim that this specific vehicle in this specific configuration is uniquely scarce and immediately threatened by competing buyers is almost never literally true. If the vehicle you want is genuinely unavailable elsewhere, it is worth a premium, a modest one, not an irrational one. If the incentive offer expires, other incentive offers will follow. The automotive industry runs promotions continuously. The end-of-month urgency is real in a narrow sense. Salespeople and dealerships have monthly quotas that create genuine end-of-month flexibility, but the specific vehicle availability urgency is almost always theater. Chapter 21. The one question that changes everything we've covered: tactics, psychology, math, and mechanism across this entire video. Let's end this chapter section with the single most powerful question you can ask, not of the dealer, not of the lender, but of yourself, before you make any vehicle acquisition decision for the rest of your life. The question is this: if this car were free, would I still choose this one? It sounds strange. Bear with it. When you remove the price variable entirely, when the car is hypothetically free and the only question is which vehicle you would choose for your actual life, your actual needs, your actual daily experience, you discover something clarifying about what you actually want from a vehicle versus what the pricing and financing and marketing have caused you to want. If the answer is yes, if you would genuinely choose this specific vehicle even if all options were equally free, then you are buying a car that suits your life, and the financial question is simply how to acquire it most efficiently. If the answer is no, if free, you would choose something simpler, more practical, less loaded with features you won't regularly use. Then you are buying a car that serves status signaling, marketing influence, or social comparison rather than your actual preferences. And that car will cost you, at current market prices and loan rates, somewhere between $300,000 and $700,000 in lifetime wealth, depending on how old you are and how long you maintain the habit. The free car thought experiment strips away everything except preference, and preference unconditioned by price and financing is a remarkably honest indicator of what you actually value. Most people, asked what car they would choose if all cars were free, do not choose the $48,000 average transaction price vehicle. They choose something comfortable, reliable, spacious enough for their actual family, capable enough for their actual use cases, and probably significantly less expensive than what they would finance if left to the cultural defaults of the car purchase process. The gap between the free car choice and the finance car choice is the gap between what you want and what the industry has convinced you that you want. That gap has a dollar value. It is the dollar value of the wealth killer we've been discussing for this entire video. Close the gap. Choose the car you would choose if it were free. Then figure out how to acquire it as cheaply as possible. That decision, made once, made clearly, made with the full arithmetic of what the alternative costs, is worth more to your financial life than almost any other single choice available to you. Drive the car that serves your life, invest the difference, and watch what happens to the number in your investment account over the next 30 years. That number is the real story. Everything else is just transportation. Conclusion: the most expensive thing in your driveway. Let's bring it all home. We started this video with a question about what the number one wealth killer for ordinary Americans actually is. We've spent the past hour answering that question with enough specificity and enough honest arithmetic that the answer is now, hopefully, not just intellectually accepted but viscerally felt. The car loan is the wealth killer, not because cars are evil. Cars are useful, cars are sometimes beautiful, cars have genuine value as transportation tools and occasionally as expressions of personality and taste. But because the specific financial structure around car acquisition in America, the normalized loan, the extended term, the monthly, payment framing, the dealer markup, the finance office product avalanche, the trade-in negative equity cycle, the mandatory insurance uplift, the relentless depreciation on financed new vehicles, has been engineered with extraordinary precision to extract the maximum possible wealth from buyers who never run the total cost numbers and whose emotional experience of the purchase is specifically managed to prevent them from doing so. The numbers are unambiguous. Over a 40-year working life, the difference between the car loan lifestyle and the cash-used car lifestyle is, depending on the specific vehicles and strategies involved, $680,000 to $1.3 million in retirement wealth, not theoretical wealth. Actual, investable, compounding, retire with dignity wealth. Sitting in a brokerage account at 65, generating income, providing security, funding the life you've been working toward. That wealth is currently sitting in dealership financing profit margins, lender interest income, and gap insurance premiums. It is not lost because of bad luck, bad timing, a bad economy, or forces beyond your control. It is leaving your financial life through a decision you make voluntarily, repeatedly, approximately every 5 to 6 years, in a transaction so normalized that most people never stop to calculate what it's actually costing them. You have now stopped. You have calculated. The number is in front of you. What you do with that knowledge is, of course, entirely up to you. You might decide that the emotional and practical value of driving a newer, nicer, financed vehicle is worth the financial cost. And that's a legitimate decision, made consciously, with full information about the trade-offs. Conscious consumption, even expensive consumption, is qualitatively different from unconscious consumption because it represents an actual choice rather than an autopilot response to cultural programming. Or you might decide that $680,000 to $1.3 million in retirement wealth is worth more to you than the incremental experience of driving a financed new car versus a paid-off used one. That the focusing illusion of the showroom floor is not a reliable guide to what will make your life better over decades. That the number in your investment account at 65 matters more than the number on the car in your driveway at 35. If that's the decision you make, if this video has contributed to even a modest shift in how you approach the next vehicle purchase, the financial impact is genuinely significant, not marginal, not incremental, life-changingly significant in the quiet, compounding, unsexy way that the most important financial decisions always are. The most expensive thing in your driveway is not the car, it's the loan attached to it, and now you know exactly what it's costing you. Drive accordingly.